Meeting order. The meeting is supposed to take place last week, but technical difficulties today. First order of business is the per Governor Baker's order suspending certain provisions of an open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20. This meeting will take place virtually immediately. Pursuant to open meeting law, I am hereby informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made. At this time, we want to identify all board members attending remotely.
We can't hear you.
John Rennie, David Consolati, Patty there. You want to unmute Patty?
It's muffled.
It would be great if you could improve the audio quality and consider troubleshooting prior to future meetings.
Thank you. We need Patty.
Oh, hello.
There you go. You have to identify yourself.
Okay, wait a minute.
I'm sorry, can someone let Judy Knight in?
Not yet. Patty, all you need to say is your name that you're here. Oh.
Let's see.
There you are. Patty, we can hear you.
Okay.
State your name and you're here, Patty. That's all.
Wait a minute. Let me go back in. Okay.
Just need to state your name and you're here, Pat.
All right. Can you hear me? You can, Sean? David, can you? Okay, now I can't hear you. Let me see up here. Start.
Patty, can you hear us?
I think I'm all right.
Yep.
Somebody keeps saying, will you let Judith Knight in?
Okay. That doesn't matter right now. You need to state your name and say you're here.
I'm sorry, what?
State your name and say you're here.
Pat Carlino, Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. All right. First order of business, approval of minutes for December 13th, open session. Can I get a motion? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. John Renier, aye.
Pat Carlino, aye.
Aye. All right, next, we're up to general business. We have no public hearings. For discussion of proposal of citizens to adopt PCB dump. We can let Ms. Knight in at this point.
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
There you go.
Okay. So this is on the agenda tonight because we're waiting on behalf of the citizens of Lee against the PCB town dump. We're waiting for your response to my letter of July 5th, in which I responded to a number of questions that you had for me as to our position as to why this the select board did not have the authority to sign the agreement in the first place to allow for a PCB dump in Lee, but also to address the fact that at the town meeting on October 1st, 2020, the town members voted in a strong majority for the select board to rescind the agreement and to set aside $50,000 to hire a counsel to go about doing that. So we are anxiously awaiting your position after we've put forth, I think, a very strong argument for you to join us in this very important effort.
First of all, I'd like to ask Mr. Pollard why we have the reason to make the decision we did. What the legal reasons we were to have this allowed to make the decision we did.
Well, the town select board handles litigation, and under our code, which is codifies something that is generally understood in terms of the executive function of the select board, it handles litigation. In this case, there was a vote to authorize a select board member to sign it, and at the time that the attorney representing the town at the time entered the agreement, that was being handled with a mediation on an appeal in the EPA. So the board had the authority to enter that agreement.
You hear that, Ms. Knight?
Speak a little more clearly or into the mic, because I'm missing some of your words and I'm not even sure who it is that's speaking.
It's Jeremiah Pollard.
Jeremiah, I don't see you, Jeremiah. But okay, if you could just, you're speaking on behalf of the town at this point?
On the reasons why we're allowed to do.
I answered the question of whether the board was authorized to enter the agreement, and the answer was yes, because of the vote to authorize the select board member to execute it in the context of the appeal that was pending at the time. It's also codified that without an expenditure of over $1,000,
Come on.
the board of selectmen has the authority to settle the case litigation that's being found.
So Jim, I don't want to interrupt you, but
And that's the answer.
are you done speaking? I don't want to interrupt you.
I'm done.
Are you saying that there was a vote to authorize the select board to sign on that contract? Because I know of no such thing.
Yeah, there was a vote by the select board to authorize a member.
Well, among the select board, not with the town members. Right?
The vote you're talking about, in terms of a town meeting vote, to settle litigation has never occurred ever in any municipality.
So when you say litigation, are you saying that the town of Lee was actually named as a party in a lawsuit in respect to this mediation that took place behind closed doors?
I don't know if you remember, the history of it, but originally there was an appeal. And this was in a mediation in the context of that. So
Was there a court case in place or a claim letter sent to the town of Lee?
it go to court. It was in front of the EPA. So in terms of the question that is put to me by my board and what you're addressing, town meetings do not have any authority in terms of settling cases that are the town as a participant.
It's not about settling cases, about being on the contract to see whether or not they're going to authorize their agents, which are the town of Lee, whether or not they can sign the contract. I understand that they can go into executive session and negotiate, but they can't sign anything unless they bring before the town vote. And if you're trying to hide behind this $1,000 that's set forth in bylaw 43/2, that is just not going to fly.
It's all very great. Some sort of great political argument. Nothing to do with authority, and that's what we're talking about.
So I'm having a really hard time hearing you. I don't know if it's just me, but it could be your mask, Jeremiah, because I know you speak clearly otherwise.
Not for me, they're kind of hard to talk.
So what is your position today? Are you staying with your position that you think that the board acted within their authority and that they will not back down?
Yes.
My position is they have the authority. That was the question.
I mean, I just want to, there are a number, if you also, I mean, there's also there are other aspects of the bylaws that I didn't bring up that will also be problematic for you in the lawsuit that I'm going to have to bring to undo this. But, you know, I mean, I would direct your attention to bylaw section 12.5, which has a time limit on the contracts. That no board member, no board or officer shall make any contract on behalf of the town, the execution of which shall necessarily extend beyond the 1 year of the date, except otherwise provided with a town vote. So there you go again, back to the town vote. But more importantly, simply because there was a committee of the Rest of River committee that was created. When I went through all the town minutes, the town meeting minutes, all I saw was that there was authorization for, that was approved to hire an agent to help, an agent, not even a lawyer, an agent, to help the Rest of the River committee with their dealings with GE. That to me, and I think any ordinary reading of that vote back in 2013 was, okay, we're going to get some information as to where we're at with this river cleanup. And that is the last time it shows up anywhere in the town meeting minutes, unless they're just allowing for the $10,000 to pay this agent, who turned out to be a law firm that represented all 5 towns instead of just the town of Lee. I don't know how they get around that conflict of interest, because the formation of that committee does not abdicate the town of Lee from its own responsibility to its town members. It's the duties to the town members, not to some committee it formed. So everywhere I turn on this, I don't see how the town of Lee could sign this contract behind closed doors and try to couch it under the fact that it's akin to a claim of less than $1,000. I mean, so it's very disappointing. My clients and I have been talking about this since our last meeting. I was probably the most optimistic that you would join us, but the rest were pretty, thought that the select board would not join us, that we would have to, in fact, fight our own select board in order to move forward. I want to make it very clear to you, and I think I did in my November 17th letter and presentation and my January 5th letter and presentation, that we wanted to work with the board. We wanted the select board to join us and to say, you're right, we should have brought this to the town members. And we made a mistake. And the only way to rectify a mistake is to admit it and start fixing it, not to dig in. So I was hoping that you would start to fix it and join us, because we have a clear path to this, but it's going to be a battle that we are willing to take on, which will include having to sue the town of Lee for their actions. And especially since, and I brought this up in my letter, especially since the town members have voted to rescind the agreement and also to set aside funds for a lawyer to go forward to do that. And if the town of Lee, the select board, is refusing to do that, now we're talking about gross negligence and acts of bad faith, because aren't autocrats. This is not an oligarchy. They're simply agents, elected officials that the town members elected to represent the town. So I don't understand how you can just digging your heels without addressing that portion of it. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that, Jeremiah.
That all sounds like you're doing a great job of advocating for the group, but it's all utterly lacking in any legal basis. The only bad faith claims that are going to exist are the select board backs out of a contract that has an express clause that will do nothing to frustrate the contract. And the board of selectmen governs litigation. So if let's just say theoretically, Judy, that you were given $50,000 right now, what would you do with it?
What would I do with it? Would the town be joining me, or would I be using it to sue them?
What would you do with it?
Well, there's 2 positions. If the select board was saying, here's your $50,000, and I don't assume they would just give me that. I think they would be set aside and I'd bill against it if I were the lawyer representing the town along with the citizens. What I would do is send out a notice to all of the people in the agreement that the town of Lee recognizes that they did not have the authority to sign this agreement and that they are withdrawing their signature from the agreement. I'm already working with the 4 other towns to do the same thing. So I'm just going to set that aside for now, because right now I'm focused on Lee, because Lee is the headline here and the leader of this. And then we would move forward to undo essentially we would have to sue in court to say the contract itself is not enforceable. There was not a meeting of the minds. The people who signed it did not have the authority to sign it, and we have to start over. And then I would file a lawsuit in Superior Court to do that.
That would land the town in a violation of the agreement, because the town's in an agreement, just saying that they didn't have the authority without any legal basis doesn't take that away. And what needs to happen, and should still happen, is that an appeal is filed with the EPA. That's what would need to happen, and if the town does that, it's going to be violating this agreement.
I don't think, are you saying they would be violating the agreement because in the agreement it says that the person has the authority to sign here, basically?
No, even without it, that would be a violation of the covenant of good faith and fair dealing with that kind of an agreement.
I'm saying right now, if
the agreement also says that the town won't do anything to frustrate the agreement. So
the town didn't have the authority to make those statements, so they can't be bound by them.
Certainly do. That's what towns do. The towns are handling litigation through their select board, and every town that I represent, every town that I've ever represented, the select board handles litigation. It goes to town meeting. The town meeting sees it only when there's an expenditure that the town meeting has to approve. So
Over $1,000.
we're running
Over $1,000, Jeremiah. That's what it says, right?
Right, yeah. In Lee, the select board has more authority than any other town in litigation. It doesn't involve more than $1,000.
Because are you saying to me that putting a toxic PCB dump in the town of Lee is equal to a claim of less than $1,000? Is that your argument?
Well, it's not what's happening. You're oversimplifying this so much, it's just amazing. The select board isn't putting a PCB dump in here. There's an appeal from GE because of the order to take all of the PCBs out of here. And it's not just as simple as, oh yeah, the select board wanted a dump here. It doesn't work that way. I talked about this at town meeting and this Long Island Sound litigation and years of litigation. And what has happened is you have, in terms of what is happening in the process here, if the town were to take $50,000, hire a lawyer, it doesn't sound like I've even heard there's a plan to go on the track I need to, which is to go into an appeal to the EPA, which still could happen. And if you do that, yeah, they're going to keep doing it anyways. And now we violate.
I think there's 2 different tracks, basically. There's the local track, which is just addressing the fact that this town of Lee did not have the authority to sign that agreement. I don't want to be repetitive, but I think I need to sign that agreement without bringing it to town meeting. And then there's a separate action with respect to the permit itself and what will be happening there. I understand that 4 years ago, the agreement was all the PCBs are being taken out of the state. They're all going. And then GE appealed that, and then they got an order. Now, when Trump was in office, and when the EPA had no teeth and was basically business friendly, not science friendly or town friendly, and they got they came up with this other idea where 10% of the PCBs would remain in Lee. That makes no sense to anyone. Anyway, Jeremiah, especially when they can all be removed out. So all we're doing is saving GE millions of dollars and ruining our town in the process. And $25 million may have looked like a lot of money to that person from the select board who decided for the town of Lee that we would accept that, but that is not a lot of money. It is, and besides which, that kind of decision cannot be made behind closed doors without taking to the town meeting. Like I said at the last hearing, let's say we wanted the town dump, the PCB dump, but we said we want $200,000 million. The town should be able to weigh in on what is that worth to the town. I feel there's no money is worth it. But to just accept the 25 million because that's what was worked out between the 5 towns when they only had one person working on behalf of all 5 of them. I mean, every part of this is so problematic. It is not the way litigation is handled. I know you know that. So I believe that it can be undone and that it should be undone and that we will get a better result now because now we have President Biden, who is more environmentally friendly, and we will have an EPA people who will be more in tune to the science and what doesn't make sense anymore. This is the old way. We're not going to save the corporations money like we used to under Donald Trump. And that's really happens to be another thing that's really in our favor. So this is a perfect time. So
I think you're oversimplifying things magnificent. I mean, I think if you want to start serving politicians, you should look right here and locally as to why it's being basically forced on these towns. And you can go to Boston where they broke ground and relocated to, you think GE relocated its headquarters to Boston arbitrarily during the middle of this process. I mean, I don't. So. And you're totally ignoring the fact that you have Long Island and what has occurred in New York when these PCBs make it to the ocean, which is a major problem for the EPA has to deal with. And the PCBs don't go to Mars if they leave. They go somewhere else. And that's never going to be something that isn't a third rail for all the same reasons that you're saying right now. And these good people in this town are really, really upset about this for good reason.
yes.
Someone else in some other town is going to be upset when it comes to their town.
Jeremiah, the original agreement, it's possible, we know it's possible that if they're going to dredge the river, which I think honestly, in maybe 5 years' time, maybe less, they'll realize that's not the way to go because all you're doing is stirring it back up, bringing it into the air. PCBs can travel in the air. So you're creating a whole toxic situation that right now PCBs are in the river, but they're not in the air in the way they will be when they dredge it. But in any event, to take those PCBs out of the river, if we can ship 90%, we can ship 100%. There's no reason to create a landfill of toxic PCBs when we know that PCBs can travel in the air and will continue to cause their carcinogenic effects to people that are from several miles around that dump. And there's no getting around that. And I mean, maybe we have to remind people of what happened in GE and Pittsfield many, many years ago, where the studies show that people were dying of cancer in certain regions far in excess of anywhere else. And there's a whole study on dogs dying in that whole too, because they were eating the soil or whatever. And they also would get these strange cancers. There's a study at Tufts that shows this. So maybe we have to bring this back to light so people understand, it's not that big a deal. It's a huge deal and it's worth this fight. So I think the select board is really making a bad choice here in sticking to their guns, if you will, forsaking their town, which is what they're doing. They are not acting in good faith in my understanding of what good faith actions are. And I understand that they have a job to do, but this is not part of their job. And frankly, I gave them an out. I painted a red carpet for them to walk down to get out of this deal, to say, you're right, we didn't have the authority. We thought we did, we signed in good faith, we realize now we're wrong because the mistakes happen. But to dig in their heels just makes it 10 times worse, honestly, for them.
You gave them an out, but an out that's already lacking in any legally based argument.
I've already set forth the legally based arguments. I think you're really over reading the bylaw 43 section 2, if you think that's going to give them any cover at all, I just don't see a judge seeing it that way. I certainly don't see a jury seeing it that way. So I'm sorry, I mean, I just want to be emphatic in what I'm saying to you is that we had hoped to work together, and I had a plan to do that as well. But if you're going to stick your heels in the ground and say that we don't have the legal basis, well, I think I'm going to be able to prove you wrong on that. And say that respectfully, but I think that this is a bad call and the wrong call. Not just the bad call, but the wrong call for the town of Lee. I'm going to make it on a select board. It's not good for Lee to have this dump. And there was no authority to sign off on it. So we will proceed through the court system like we've indicated we would, and we'll get started, immediately, because I think time is of the essence. I was hoping for a different answer from you tonight. So I guess that also means that you'll be, just to be clear, you'll be ignoring the town vote to rescind the agreement, and you will not be setting aside any funds to hire an attorney to look into that or pursue that for you. That's also been decided. Is that right?
You have the answer, Judy. It's not about ignoring the town vote. It's about what the select board has the authority to do and what it doesn't have the authority to do. Again, the town meeting does not, cannot do it.
It's on the warrants and it was voted on. I think that's the
town meeting is not capable of directing an attorney to, do what the attorney representing the town is doing. And all the town do is reach this agreement at this point. And all the arguments as popular as they may be, including, don't dredge, those have all been made, and they've been made well, and whether I agree with you, whether members of the select board agree with you, it's beside the point, because they're going to do it.
I understand. I'm disappointed. I want to make one last point, and then I will, step down from the podium, as it were. But I want to be sure that 25 million that was set aside for the town of Lee is remaining in escrow and is not being spent on anything until this issue is resolved. And that means litigation, which is forthcoming. But I understand it's in escrow, and I want to make sure that it's going to stay there and that it's not being spent on anything else, and then that we'll have something else we have to deal with at the end. If we undo the agreement, then the money should be given back to GE, and we're going to start over. So I hope that
the money's not going to be spent without town meeting.
Okay, it stays in escrow.
It's not an escrow, it can't be appropriated without town meeting vote.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I think some people needed to hear that, so I wanted to be clear. So I thank you for your time. I'm going to step down from the podium, but I'm going to stay in the meeting.
Right, then I don't know if we're thrilled about this, but long ago and far away, we were mandated by the EPA to deal with this. We didn't have to like it, we had to deal with it. Nobody would have loved to have this way it turned out. But Ms. Knight, you also have been an attorney for a long time. I'm sure you negotiate contracts and all that. We hired a lawyer, Matthew Tawa, 27 years of experience, been to Supreme Court, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and ninth courts. Clifford Shapiro, Penn Law, Cornell, Massachusetts Lawyer of the Year. I'm assuming when you give your clients an opinion after you negotiate, that's something they have to take into verbiage. We were given an opinion by our lawyer about what we should do. And seeing as he's a lot smarter than I am, then we took that opinion. We did not.
That's smarter than I am. Sorry, Jeremiah. Yes.
When I'm done, you can speak.
Okay.
So we have to take this into consideration. What is the best possible solution? What is the worst possible solution? What do we need to do to make the best possible solution for this town? As sitting in, reading it, hearing about it, we did the appropriate thing that we thought was responsible to do. And I'm sorry if nobody, or not a lot of people agree with it, or not some people agree with it, but we did what we thought was the right thing to do. Now, you can argue all day long about whether we have the authority or not. We believe we have the authority. But that is what it is. If you want to pull a lawsuit saying that I shirked my job and acted out of some personal gain or whatever you want to call it, there was nothing there. I've been in this town for 22 years doing this work between the LI and this job. I have never, ever done anything for my personal gain. And so I'm sorry if you feel that way or any of the people. But we had to look at what was put in front of us. We had to deal with that, and that's what we did. And so if you're going to argue that we didn't do our job as mandated, you're absolutely 100% wrong. Now you can speak. I'm sorry, you're muted. Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
There. Mr. Consolati, no one has made any allegations that any select board has.
For the last 2 times here.
No, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. No one has said that you're doing it for personal gain. I've never said that. I don't have any information that would cause me to believe that. I hope I never do. I don't imagine that. I don't think that. I think you thought you had the authority to sign on the contract, and I believe that you were wrong about that. And I also said that even if, and I don't think that for Section 43, Section 2 covers this, the litigation bylaw, but it only allows you to settle claims. It gives you the discretion to settle claims under 1,000. And I think that trying to resolve this and signing off on a dotted line of agreement of this magnitude without taking it to town meeting is a violation and abuse of your discretion. And I think that that's really your biggest problem, that you had discretion to bring it to the town. I think you're mandated to. The secondary argument is, even if you think you weren't mandated to, you knew you had the discretion to, not to. And I think that's an abuse of your discretion as a select person for the town of Lee. So that is sort of you're almost like an entity that I'm speaking to or referring to in terms of a legal a lawsuit. It's not a personal lawsuit against you unless there is gross negligence or bad acts of faith. And I don't hope that you have to look into that. But at this point, it's really about abusing your discretion. And frankly, I think it was wrong. It was just, you were not allowed to sign that without taking the town meeting. And again, I can't imagine why you would want to, why you would do that in secret. Of course it was going to blow up. So, but it's not, no one's saying you're doing it for personal gain. I don't take it personally in that way. That isn't something that's even part of this. If we had that, we don't, if that's not what we're suggesting. So, and I don't know if anybody on the committee was paid for their participation. I certainly hope not, because that will be problematic, but I don't have that information yet.
That's quite amazing. That's nice. No,
I didn't hear you.
Same $151 a week, a month that we always pay. None of this money comes to us.
For the select board.
Yes, we get the same $151 a month we always pay.
Right. No, I understand it's basically volunteer position. I'm saying if there was additional monies paid to be on the Arrest River committee, I think that.
No, there's nothing.
Okay. So I don't need, but Mr. Consolati, I'm telling you, I don't need those things, and I never even believed that there was anything like that going on in order to make this wrong. It's simply wrong.
They're a little jab and putting things in people's minds that, there might be something here. There's nothing here. We did our job. We did our job as mandated us to do. We did our job according to the EPA and GE, the negotiation. We did what we thought we were supposed to do. And I believe we did the right thing. I know it's not the most happy thing in the world, and I'm never gonna believe it was. But when you're given an opportunity, or not even an opportunity, you're given a mandate that you have to do something, well, every once in a while, you gotta step up and damn well do it. And that's what we did. Because the other end of it was worse. We had a choice. 1 dump, 3 dumps, not removing all material that is way over 5 parts per million, or what the hell the stupid thing is. They agreed to take that out, which they weren't gonna do initially. So we went through all this with a freaking lawyer that cost a lot of goddamn money. And they did their job, and they gave us a proposal that said, this is what you should do. I'm sorry if you don't like that. I'm sorry if you don't agree with it, but that's the way it was.
Hey, listen, you didn't have your own lawyer. You had shared a lawyer with 4 other towns, and that lawyer did not look out for the town of Lee. And as a lawyer, which I've been doing for 30 years, I can tell you that when I'm acting on behalf of someone or my client, I have one client, or in the citizens as a group, we have one singular interest. And that lawyer was not acting as the town of Lee's lawyer. I'm not talking about Jeremiah, I'm talking about the Power Group, the rest of those 5 towns. So I'm saying you were put in a very bad position. And also, you were giving those other bad choices that you just referenced. Those options should have been brought to the town members and said, look, this is what we're facing. They're saying they're going to put 3 more dumps in, or they'll do this 1 dump, and they'll only put the least toxic PCBs in, whatever that means. And the town voted on it, and you wouldn't have this on your shoulders. You shouldn't have it on your shoulders as the 2 or 3 select board people who made this decision. It's too big a decision for the town of Lee. That's why you have a town meeting, and this should have been brought there. I would have liked to have heard those other options, so I understood what you understood at the time. So I don't think that that's your best argument. So
You didn't know with 75 people involved? Make a decision?
so what?
So you would litigate a decision with 75 people allowed to make a decision?
So are you talking about the 5 towns?
No, you went to town meeting. You're gonna have 75 people make a decision?
You're going to give them the information and have a vote on it. Yeah, you have to. You could have made your case if that's what you thought that this was the best deal. You can get up and say, but this is what I believe your obligation was, is we've had these negotiations, geez, threatening us with all these lawsuits. We could have 3 dumps instead of 1, or they may not do anything.
He didn't threaten us. They should threaten the EPA. It's got nothing to do with us. We were, this was thrust upon us.
If I may keep pointing them up.
Okay, it's not about what you were ordered or not ordered to do by the EPA. It's about bringing that information before the town members. That's really all. That's the gist of it. That's the all of it. That should have been done, is what I'm trying to say. You can't make those decisions behind closed doors. It's not your. I don't believe you have the authority to do it.
If I could remind you that these negotiations were having in a mediation session, and you can't negotiate outside of the mediation session, so you can't bring that to the town meeting. Now you're.
Steve, I already said that I understand negotiations happen behind closed doors, and that you are entitled to do that. But the final decision, and I feel I'm being repetitive, and I don't want to be, but final decision, what you're finally going to do before you sign on that dotted line, that has to go before the town meeting. That part right there. So, and that wasn't done, and that's where you and I disagree, and we clearly disagree strongly. And I feel strong on my side. You feel strong on your side. That's great. You're entitled to feel out your feelings. I think you're wrong, and I have to act on behalf of my client, and I will.
You get something else, Jeremiah?
No, I mean, it's just, we're sitting here talking about authority, and you're saying that the town meeting should authorize it, and, that's never, ever happened in any litigation in any town, ever.
Not Jeremiah, not even over $1,000, which is what exactly the bylaw says it has to do. I mean, shall I read 33 section 2 to you?
Anything the town meeting does is approve your expenditure.
I'm sorry, but the bylaws have to be followed.
What you're insinuating is that the board did something that wasn't authorized to handle litigation in the way that every town handles litigation. And if you, let's say theoretically, the board said, yeah, we do want to try to back out agreement, you put up $50,000. Who would you consult, your clients? Or would you come to our town meeting and decide piece by piece how you're going to handle litigation strategies? Sure. You would you have no, who would be governing what you did? Are you saying that you would have to go to the town meeting to discuss every settlement proposal, Judy?
Yes, Jeremiah, the bylaw says, the town is not authorized to sign, to settle.
I'm asking you, let's say you were representing the town, back out of the agreement, it's your position that you would go to town meeting for every question you had for the client?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you what I would have done if I was counsel during the time you were signing this, they signed this agreement. I would say, do not sign this agreement. You've done the negotiations. Now you take these terms of this agreement and you bring it to the town meeting and you tell them the whole story and just have a special town meeting on this huge change for the town of Lee. So I think trying to hide behind closed doors and trying to say that they could do this and therefore they're okay doesn't make it okay, and nobody's buying it because obviously it's not okay. You can't.
No one did that. They did a mediation. Would you do it as an attorney? Everybody did it as an attorney. No one went behind closed doors and did something in secret. It was a mediation process to try to settle the case.
I live in the town of Lee. I wasn't invited to the mediation process. It is behind closed doors if that information is not brought to the town meeting. It wasn't open to the public, Jerry. It was behind closed doors.
Mediation without authority from your client. So I think you can start to see how what you're saying doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, I'm sorry you don't understand it, but I think it does make sense.
You would not be able to act in litigation with authority by changing legislative body that's comprised of a different group every time it gets together.
So are you, Jeremy, I don't want to go into these hypotheticals.
I don't think you understand how town meetings and authorization for litigation work.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you. I just don't understand your question, but I think this particular thing, this particular issue, forget all the other litigations, just for now. We're not talking about anything else, but the decision to sign off on this settlement agreement. You agree with me? Would you agree with me that the select board certainly could have brought it to town meeting and chose not to?
That's not how it works. It's just not something that you do when you're in litigation with the town. The town meeting is a legislative body comprised of the group on that day.
Well, the town members weren't included either. Jeremiah, we have town representatives. They weren't included in this decision either. They are the legislative body of the town of Lee. That's how I understand it.
I think I understand what the picture may be, but there's nothing in terms of the municipal authority for handling litigation, the law, the code, and the statutes of the Commonwealth that support what you're saying. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I think that you're going to find that's not how other people read it. You and I disagree. That's what litigation's all about.
We don't need to argue ad nauseum here tonight.
No, I agree. I'm not here to, I was here to get your answer and I had accepted it. I just indicated disappointment in it because I think you have the ability to change your minds and join us and help us get out of this agreement and instead of fighting us on it. I'm not sure that's like the best look for the select.
That's not happening either. I mean, those are all characterizations that are they're inappropriate because nobody's fighting you on it.
That's not what's happening.
Well, you're not agreeing to it and you have, so, I mean,
Some people see that not agreeing to the
you asked me what I would do, and I told you, you asked me to spell out for you, maybe not you, but the select board said, how will you do this? What will you do? And I said, I'll have to file a lawsuit. I made that very clear so that it was all on the table up front in the beginning, not some sort of threat, but just as kind of the reality if we can't work this out amongst ourselves, which apparently we can't. So.
Nope.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think,
That it?
I'll let the town communicate, but I believe there are 4 folks in the, who have their hands raised.
Can I?
I'm sorry.
I just make a statement before we get to the third on the chat a little bit. So I just want to say that I think that most of you will remember that about a year ago I stood up and I said that I would fight against this dump, and I honestly have done that. And I know that might not be evident now, but I did fight hard to get on this board. I urged people to comment, and I myself commented on this agreement. I've researched technologies for PCB remediation, and I will continue to. And I've read as much material about this agreement I could get my hands on, and I've talked to a lot of you about this issue. But I'm sorry because I'm not able to do what it is you all want me to do. I'm not able to stop the dump with my seat on this board, but it's not from lack of trying. And I have quite literally been up one side of this issue and down the other. Many people have urged me to vote this deal down, vote against the deal to rescind it, but there is no vote. The settlement agreement does not come back up for a vote on whether or not we approve it. It's already in place. So I can't spend my time and my energy relitigating the settlement agreement. I have to respect the decision that was made and move forward. This brings me to the committee that I'm trying to form, that we are trying to form, to oversee the rest of river cleanup. And the purpose of that committee is to oversee the activities outlined in this settlement agreement, finalize EPA permit, continue to research new technologies for remediation of PCB contaminated soils, and to hold GE and the EPA accountable as best we can. I think that, the committee once formed will explore technologies to push the EPA to treat and not dump, but we do need to be very prepared for a likely future where GE is allowed to create a dump in our town. And if that happens, we need to make sure that it's built to the highest standards and they're held accountable for their activities if they do something wrong. And I know that that's not what you guys want me to hear. It's just what you want to hear from me, but that's where we are. That's where this is, and that's what I have to do with this seat moving forward. And so, with that, if you'd like to, I think there's people out there with their hands raised. So from there, I think just bear with us while you get recognized to speak, and we'll take them all in turn.
We're going to recognize Stone Murphy. If you want to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Glad that wasn't my actual hand. I would be rather tired. The first thing I wanted to express, Selectman Consolati, the manner in which you just used words frickin' and hell was completely unacceptable, and you should be ashamed of that behavior. That does not speak on behalf of any of what I wanted to say. What I wanted to get into immediately was to express something to the gentleman with the select board who expressed the sentiment that townspeople will be upset no matter where this dump ends up. I would like to remind the select board that there are thousands of miles of vacant land occupied and controlled by municipalities that I am certain would take a bribe from GE for their areas of jurisdiction, considering how desolate they are, say in Nevada, say in New Mexico, Alaska. If you were who controls this jurisdiction, this select board controlling this jurisdiction, if you were willing to take this bribe, I'm sure someone else with many, many less families in their communities absolutely also would. If I may continue to have my time on the floor.
I have never taken a bribe in my life, and I don't know, I'm totally offended with your little accusation there about a bribe. I didn't get any bribe, nobody got any bribe. So I don't know where you're going off on this, but it's really, really offensive.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I hope you understand how offended the townspeople are. I would like to make a point of clarification on my own behalf by saying I don't think that this is a personal bribe where you're experiencing any monetary or capital gain of your own accord. I think that this is a bribe from GE to handle a mistake they made, so to speak, in a way that gives our town a little bit of a pretty penny to sweep something under the rug. You took a bribe on behalf of the town. When you took an oath of duty to be a selectman on behalf of this town, you took up the position to make decisions like this, although we can go back and forth on whether you had the right to make this particular decision. You occupying your position, I feel, took a bribe from General Electric to do something that was bad for this town. Now, I'd like to move on if I have the opportunity. Would you like to reply, sir?
Let me ask you one question first.
Yes, sir.
Do you know where this originally came from?
Well, I'm not a legal expert, nor am I an environmental expert. Before you tie me up in knots, I'd like to continue what I can speak on behalf of.
Federal senators and federal congressmen, Elizabeth Warren,
No,
Neil.
this is a local issue. And if I've learned one thing in state and local politics, it's that this action originates, it has its genesis in local government. Now, I worked for Richard Neal, and I tried to get him on board to get against this agreement. You know how much crud, see, I'll watch my language, how much crud I took from this community for endorsing Richard Neal. Now, I'll be very clear, I certainly won't be endorsing any of our current selectmen if they go forward.
Right?
But what I need to say is this begins at the local level. And I absolutely disagree with what you just expressed, that this begins at the federal level.
It most certainly does. That's where it came from. That was where the cleanup had arrived from.
They granted you the opportunity to oversee this. I mean, the federal government isn't particularly. Would you like to cut me off? I know that you are the chair, so you have the opportunity to speak over whoever you would like.
Yes, and I've heard your voicemail, so you ought to be a little bit careful of your words as well.
What I'd like to move on in saying is I'd like to a point of clarification to be made on behalf of the gentleman that's with the select board. I believe his name is Jeremiah. If I'm correct, you said rescinding names from the agreement is not in good faith to the agreement. But how does it matter if the decision to rescind names from the agreement is not in good faith if the decision would be to rescind from the agreement in general? I think that there's a bit of a catch-22 there. There's a conflicting message. You don't want to rescind from something because it would be a conflict of interest in your membership of it. I mean, if you don't want to be a member of it, how is it a conflict of interest to rescind?
I believe what he was saying was there is a line in there that says that acting in good faith and signing on to the agreement, we are not allowed to frustrate that agreement. By hiring a lawyer to overturn that agreement, we would be frustrating that agreement. By voting to rescind, we would be frustrating that agreement, and then we are backing out and not acting in good faith on that agreement.
Thank you for that clarification, Selectman Renier. I think that was said at a time where we could not hear a single word you were saying. Selectman Consolati, I'd like to finish by turning my attention back to you. I heed your warning, and I would like to issue you one as well. I mean, the Consolati name is a huge name in this town, and if you have a street named after you, for goodness sakes. But, you move forward with this deal, the legacy is going to slowly decay and become one of disgrace. Thank you for the floor. I'd like to turn it over to one of my fellow townspeople who are truly concerned about this issue.
Sure.
Okay, we'll recognize Bob Jones.
Before,
Unmute Bob.
if I could just say something first, is that I know a lot of Consolatis, and I don't think that there's anything that is going to take place that's going to degrade the Consolati brand, if you will, in this town. So.
Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. I'm going to try to be brief. I think that Judith summed it up for our group pretty succinctly at the previous meeting and tonight. We seem to have a fundamental difference of opinion on this, and so I'm not going to belabor it. I do have maybe two, maybe three things that I'd like to address. Sean, may I address you as Sean?
Yes, absolutely.
Sean, you ran as being opposed to the dump. And I think you know that we probably can surmise that you got elected because of that, particularly given because Mr. Wickham got less than a third of the vote. And we can probably guess why that happened. But since you've been in office, I know that you've just said that you've done all kind of research and everything. Have you ever talked to HRI or any of their scientists? I mean, one of their consultants is in fact the world's foremost expert on PCBs. Have you ever sat down with HRI and gotten the facts on this? I know that you weren't part of this making this decision, but the science that was put forward to the board that voted it in, they were all hired by GE and by the EPA. So have you done any independent study of this at all? I mean, have you actually talked to HRI in particular, because they really have experts? And you don't have to. I'm just asking yes or no, really.
Well, since I've been in office, no, I haven't reached out to HRI, but I was in conversation with Tim Gray, and I that's part of what this committee will do. And some people who have reached out and expressed interest have cited that. But yeah, we should talk to HRI, and I think that that's a valid. I think that's a good idea and a good direction to go.
I mean, the horse has already left the barn. I'm asking if you had actually, you've made a decision not to take an action to rescind this agreement, and I think a lot of people expected that you would do that. But I know that you voted to rescind it at town meeting, but that's the only, at least to my knowledge, that's the only actual action that you've taken to overturn the implementation of this dump in Lee. Is that correct?
I suppose if yes, any public action to
Okay. Please don't take this as a personal attack. What I'm trying to do is make it, if we're going to go to court on this, the people of Lee need to know what we're dealing with. They have to know who we're dealing with. So I'm just trying to clarify things. I'm not saying you're right or I'm just trying to clarify things. And my understanding is that your contribution or your planned contribution for dealing with this dump, or this cleanup, so to speak, is to have an oversight committee to make sure that GE is doing their job. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Who do you have for the committee thus far?
We haven't formed it. I am still taking inquiries if you're interested.
Actually, I'm not, because I am not a scientist and I'm not an ecologist and I'm not a public health official. I'm not a chemical engineer. I don't have any of those talents, and I don't know of anybody locally who does. If we're going to have a local oversight committee, I just question the effectiveness of it, unless there are people who actually are experts in those various fields and others. But okay, so I just wanted to make that for people who are listening on TV and on the Zoom meeting. I just wanted to clarify that. Now, speaking to Mr. Consolati and Ms. Carlino, I know that we know that the vast majority of people in Lee are opposed to this dump. Regardless of how you got here, whether you had the authority, that'll all be hashed out in court. And but there were public informational hearings where there was overwhelmed. This is right after the announcement of your signing onto the agreement. There were public informational hearings, several of them in various locations, where there was overwhelming opposition. I mean, person after person, dozens. Probably in the hundreds after it was all said and done, were opposed to the implementation of this dump in Lee. And I know that you know that. And I know that you read the paper, and I know that you've seen that, there's a, sort of this wonderful vision of the cleanup of the Housatonic River that the Eagle puts out. But I know that you read the letters to the editor, and the letters to the editor are overwhelmingly against this dump, not only from people from Town of Lee, but other people in the Berkshires too. I saw one in there from North Adams. So I know that you're aware from that standpoint. I know that you're aware that the EPA, with the very fine study it did, asking for people's comments, there were hundreds. I don't know if there was over 300, over 400, all in opposition to this dump being put into Lee, all in opposition. And then we saw that wonderful piece in the Eagle where basically they ignored all of us. They ignored all of us. And other than the 8 votes at the town meeting, 2 of them were you and Ms. Carlino, and the other 6 came from town reps. The vote was 37-8 to rescind this agreement, and I know that you're aware of that. Yet tonight, given all that, given that you are supposed to be representatives of the town of Lee, not acting on behalf of the EPA, not backing down from the EPA. You're supposed to be representatives of the town of Lee, and not backing down from GE, or not standing up for GE. You instead back down and say we had no choice in the matter. Well, this whole thing has been sold as the last best choice we have, the last best chance we have to clean up the river. I assure you that the people of Lee and the people of Berkshire County do not accept that. We simply don't. And you acted arbitrarily. You acted unilaterally without the support of your constituents. And so as a result, we're going to be heading to court. But I'm wondering tonight, I mean, now Sean is on board. Mr. Wickham is gone. Sean is on board, and Sean is I presumably opposed to the dump, but feels we don't have any choice in the matter. I wonder if you would be willing, for the people of Lee, you're on television, you've got a Zoom meeting going. If you would be willing to publicly take a vote to reaffirm your commitment to the rest of the river, given everything that I've just said, given what we know, that you know about your constituents and the people of Lee, if you're willing to take a vote tonight just to simply, even if it's non-binding, just to show us that you're absolutely certain and solid behind this rest of the river, if you take a vote to reaffirm your commitment to the rest of the river, would you do that publicly? Because it's not behind closed doors now. It's an open meeting. And just for the sake of the people of town of Lee moving forward, how about standing up and facing up to demonstrate the courage of your convictions and take a vote? It would be great, because then we really, really understand where we're at.
I'm not sure what that would do, Bob, but I did take a vote publicly at town meeting. And that was my stance there. And I'm not sure what we would gain to accomplish from whatever you're trying to get out of me here tonight. So,
well, what I'm trying to get is obviously you stood up and that vote, obviously that 37-8 vote, you're not arguing to the other 2 selectmen that they should, that was a mandate from the town representatives. You're not arguing that was a mandate. You're saying, well, it's a fine vote. So I'm asking, if everything you're saying, Sean, in fact, everything that you're saying I'm against the dump, but we can't. So if there's nothing that you can do, if there's absolutely nothing you can do, if you won't stand up and stand with us on this, and you're saying that it's absolutely inevitable, I'm asking 3 of you to have the courage of your convictions and say, we want to proceed with the rest of the river agreement. That's all, as a demonstration to the voters of the town of Lee. Would you do that? Again, the courage of your convictions.
I don't think there's any of us who would love to see a dump in the town of Lee. I don't think that's even a question. But the fact is, we have legal binding rights that we agreed to. And we took the best interest in the town of Lee, given the circumstances, given the litigation that took place, given the fact that we had a lawyer who has 27 years experience doing this, and he gave us the best possible choice to go forward, given the fact of what the EPA said, given the fact that GE fighting, we did the best possible thing. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with that.
It's not a matter of that. That's not what I'm asking. We've been over this. Repeat.
Say that we were wrong, we weren't wrong. We did what we had.
I understand that's not what I'm saying. I understand how that you think that you're right on this, and it's absolutely fine. I'm asking you, in the face of a lawsuit going forward, in the face of a town that's overwhelmingly opposed to what happened here, to the agreement that was made, never mind whether you had legal standing, you didn't have legal standing, or your lawyer said this. First of all, you're responsible to the voters of Lee, first and foremost, hands down, not to any other town, not to the EPA, not to GE. And this will all be hashed out in court for sure. But I'm asking you, as a representative of the people of town of Lee, as representatives of the people of town of Lee, to tell the people of town of Lee that in the face of all the opposition, overwhelming evidence, that you are going to reaffirm the decision to stick with the rest of the river agreement. That's all. It's a demonstration.
I don't know what to say, Bob. I mean, there's no, like I just said it all in my comments. So.
Well, okay, all right. So I think the fact that is the answer that you're not going to vote. You're not going to make a motion. You're not going to do that. No. Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, that's fine because you've just really answered a question, a big question for the voters of Lee. Anyway, even by refusing to do that, I think you've answered the question. And to be clear, when Jude says we're going to court, we are going to court. The Eagle at the last meeting used a term which I found sadly disturbing. They said that we sparred, which sounds like we're playing ping pong or something. We are not sparring here. The citizens of Lee, we're not jousting or trying to make points, or that'll all be done in court. But what we're really doing is we're fighting tooth and nail. This is a knockdown, drag out fight. We are not sparring. We're fighting to get our town government back, first of all. We're fighting to keep a toxic waste dump out of a neighborhood in the town of Lee. We're fighting for an agreement to clean up the Housatonic River that actually means something, because any of the real experts, and not the scientists from the EPA or not the scientists from GE. If you talk to HRI and the other side, this is a half-baked attempt to clean up the river. It's a way for GE to get off the hook. The only thing that this agreement does is lets GE off the hook. And every other town that signed under this agreement doesn't have a toxic waste dump in it. And they all made money. Not a lot of money, $10,000 here, $20,000 over there. But Lee hit the jackpot. Lee gets $25 million for a toxic waste dump. And I'll finish up with this. There's another meeting that's going on tonight on Zoom in Lee. It is the Lee Youth Commission subcommittee, and they're discussing a community center for Lee. That's what they're talking about tonight. Which sounds great. The community centers, they cost a lot of money. So I'm just wondering, I'm asking, because I'm not suggesting anything, I'm asking, has there been any conversation about what that $25 million might be spent on. Because if this, and I dare not think, almost dare not say it, if this is about, I'm a little naive and I'm not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree, but I couldn't understand why you folks didn't go and get the information necessary, like from HRI and to know. What Pat Carlino said at one meeting, I believe in the science. Well, you believe in what you're believing is GE science, and you're believing EPA science, and we know that what EPA has been weaponized and is by the Trump administration. We know all that. So you're listening to
what is the correlation between the meeting with the lead?
I am getting to that. I am getting to that. The rest of I really thought that this was about, the selectmen don't understand that this cleanup is not going to be what the GE says it's going to be. And they just need to understand that I don't think it's about the cleanup of the river. I really don't. And this is, now I'm not speaking for this group. I'm speaking for myself. I don't think this is about the cleanup of the river at all. I don't think ultimately I think there are people in Lee that really just are willing to be let off the hook by GE and by the EPA, and they say, this is the best deal you're going to get. Oh, you can never beat GE in court. It's the last best thing you're going to get. It's a take it or leave it kind of thing. And so let's sign on to this, and let's do the best we can. And we all know that none of us are ever going to eat a fish out of the Housatonic River. None of us. But there are ways, there are far more efficient, more effective ways to reclaim that river. But they don't want to talk about that. And so what they do is they offer money. And I think that there are people who use the GE, the assurances of GE and the EPA to say, oh no, we got the science, this is the best we're going to get. And there's $25 million. I think that $25 million makes a huge difference, because now we're talking about a community center. With money that we don't have. With money that we don't have. I'm sorry, I have the floor, Mr. Consolati. I'm speaking to the point, and I'm not being rude, and I'm not calling names. So if you just let me finish, please. Thank you. And I'm glad you find me amusing, because I can't tell you how amusing I have found the last year. So there's that $25 million. You're off the hook. GE said the science is there. EPA says the science is there. HRI, let's just sort of wave them off. And the majority of the people in town of Lee, let's just wave them off. And I'm just concerned that if you're not representing the majority of people in the town of Lee, who are you representing? Certainly, I don't think that you're getting anything personally out of it, but I couldn't figure out why you would ever turn your back on your constituents, why you would betray the citizens of the town of Lee, and what's to be gained. There's that $25 million. And I can't believe that nobody's had a conversation about how that may be spent. So in closing, I just wanted to say that it's regrettable, but we were left with no choice. We will be going to court. We will be organizing the town reps. There are already town reps on board with this. And it's unfortunate. I've never seen a situation where a town has to sue itself because of the actions of the Board of Selectmen. But here we are, and we'll see where we go going forward. Thank you for your time.
Hello.
Hold on a second. Let me comment on that in just a tad. First of all, that anybody who's watched our meetings over the last 2 years knows that I'm against the community center for the amount of money it was going to cost. And I don't know where Bob Lottery comes from, but when we hire a lawyer that has a Penn Law, Cornell Law, and Mass Lawyer of the Year, I'm sorry, but when he gives us advice, that's where we go. So I don't know where that out of left field comments come about the community center, but it's incredibly wrong and incredibly offensive.
Hello, can I have a chance to speak?
Absolutely, Bob.
I've been sitting here all night trying to get on. Lower hand, okay. I've been listening to all the conversation, same conversation we've been having for a long time. And I just want to point out a couple of things. And Mr. Jones, if we were to take a vote, I would vote to do the same thing we did before. And you might ask why, how I could possibly feel that way. It's because the alternative was a disaster. As far as the money, which I don't care how much it is, whether it was 25 or 100 million, we should be compensated for something that's going to go on in our towns with this magnitude. We have not talked about how it would be spent. My vision is we'll have a committee that will look at it, talk to different departments, talk to the public and say, what do you think of this? And any decision will be made by town meeting, how that money is to be spent. But I basically just answered the questions that Judith asked. And if I could I'd like to give you my answer to those. Obvious, what steps has the board taken to retain legal counsel for the above referenced purposes? None, because we haven't done anything yet. If no steps have been taken, what are the select board's plan to rescind the settlement agreement? Speaking for myself, none. The reason being, I do not agree with the fact that Tom Wickham did not have the authority to sign the settlement agreement on behalf of the town of Lee. I also referenced section 43-1 of the Lee Town bylaws. Judy, I know you've referenced section 43-2. I don't feel it applies. And no, I'm not a lawyer, but I've been in municipal government for 40 years. Last question. Will the board earmark some, if not all, of the $50,000 legal defense fund to help pay for the citizens of Lee's chosen counsel? Again, speaking for myself, no. Reason being, collectively, the towns of Lee, Lenox, Great Barrington, Stockbridge, and Sheffield, the rest of the River Municipal Board, have already spent over $500,000 raised at each of our individual town meetings over the last 7 years, as well as some BRPC grants to struggle with an outcome that has been in the making for 20 years. If you haven't lived here for 20 years, then you may not know of how it started in Pittsfield, but it's been there, it's been coming, and it finally got to us. It may not be the popular outcome. I certainly didn't want to dump, but it's one that science has established to be safe and effective, which is one of the reasons the appeal board turned down EPA's request to have everything shipped off. The alternative to this was far too devastating. So I can't approve just giving more taxpayer money away for something that I feel would be careless and irrelevant. And the rest of the River Municipal Board, Judy, just for your information, was organized under Chapter 40, 4A of Mass General Law. So you might want to look that up to see how we could do the municipal board and what powers we had. Hold on, just one more thing. As far as EPA goes, it's in the committee that the town of Lee would have to oversee the work done in Lee. EPA is the oversight for the whole project. We all said we'd like someone from our own town to work with them. And no, I don't have I've never read a scientific paper in my life, who's ever writing now. But I've been working with environmental scientists for the last 4 years, 3 to 4 years. Anyways, EPA is the oversight committee to force GE to do what they have to do. We wanted our own committee as well. And I have looked up the works of Dr. Carpenter, who Tim has talked about quite a bit. And I've read 2 or 3 articles. And the one thing that I came away with what he said is, no, a dump isn't the ideal solution, but the PCBs have to come out of the river. And I agree with that. And I can't understand why anybody would want to live next to the river where they are in the air. As we've had some people say, they're causing cancer. We need to get them out of the river. The ideal place to put them in a dump in Lee? No. But we had a 50-50 chance of losing. And if we lost, we would lose everything, including all the things we put in the agreement to keep us safe, whether you agree or not. That's all.
Thanks, Doug. I just want to say, Bob, to your point too, it's true. I haven't reached out to HRI in the last 6 months, but I did go to the informational meetings when this agreement was rolled out. And I went to those informational meetings 4 years ago when they wanted to do free dumps. And I have read Dr. David Carpenter's, some of his material regarding this. And he does say unequivocally that the PCBs have to come out of the river. They have to come out of the system whenever we can get them out. And where, like Pat is saying, where nobody wants to live next to a dump, that's understandable. Absolutely. And nobody's saying that's not the truth. But he also says that they can be built safely. And that's what the aim here is to do. And I know that that's not what you want us to do, but that's what I can do.
Okay, next we have Claire Leahy.
Okay, it's Ed Leahy. It's Ed Leahy speaking.
Yeah.
Dave, I go back to your grandfather, not just your father. I was born in this house, right underneath the dump. For 20 years, I was out of here and came back to this town. I came back to this town because I love it and love everything about this town. I have been on boards with Mrs. Carlino. I have been through everything you can imagine in this town except the select board itself. And to hear you speak the way you are doing, and Sean especially, you played for me. I know you well. I know what you stood for when you stood up at that town meeting and said, I will stop this board from agreeing to a dump in Lee, and you backed away from it. And Dave, if you were your father sitting in that seat, this would never happen. And you know it. I say it because I'm so upset. Why? You happen to live up on Fairview Street or somewhere. Patty, she lives over there. You live in South Lee. I live right here, right next to Lenox Dale, where that dump is being put. It is put in our backyard. Think of what that is going to do to the property values of everybody in this area. Didn't get thought about that. $25 million. Oh my God, we could build a community center. What about the property values? And what about the danger to us? Because that is a sand pit. And I know it's a sand pit. It was the best sand in the 1800s and the early 1900s to make glass. And that's why they built it. Sand is porous. You're going to put a dump on top of this porous sand. Oh yeah, three levels of protection. Bull. That's going to leak. And you know what? This is on you. And I look at you and I think of your dad and I think of myself. I think of my wife. And we're sitting here and I say, this is on you.
I just have a couple things to say. In the past history of this country, we've had plenty of things that we had to break the law to stop. Abolitionists were doing something that was against the law, but they went ahead and did what was the right thing to do. This is not right. It's unjust. Women wanted the right to vote. They went out and marched and got arrested and put in jail. People have protested this sort of thing through the years. I just looked at something from 1927 when women were being poisoned by radium, uranium, doing watch dials. That company was stopped. Finally, in the 70s, the women that were dying and their bones were rotting away were each paid $10,000. They were very poor by the company, by the big guys. They had taken those men to court. They thought they had won their case, but the payoffs that bought out the company. That was in 1927. And then they kept producing those watch dials that were full of radium and causing people to die from the rotting of their bones all the way through the 70s, because we did not have an EPA then. Governments were just, businesses were getting away with all kinds of things through the history of this country. There was finally the Clean Waters Act that was rescinded by Trump. We're trying to get it back again. We're trying to get the justice back for the environment, and we're trying to get our health back and be protected from big business poisoning us. This is wrong. And it would not be wrong for you to back away from it. This is not about you're legally bound by this agreement because of the permission you had, Patty, to go into this negotiation. We know that the negotiations are supposed to be legal. They have to be done in secret so that everybody sitting around can have a chance to discuss this without hundreds of people sitting around and trying to get their voice in there. I was at the meeting where it was decided that we would go into secret negotiation. I was there and I thought I'd hear something more, but I never heard any announcement that there was actually a negotiation beginning. And the law about this is very clear that any government select board that is going into negotiations has to tell the town before they go into negotiations that they are going into negotiations behind doors. And when the negotiation is finished, it's very clearly stated that they have to come back to the town and tell them what the decision was. Now, whether or not the town agrees or not, at least they had to do that. They had to do that. You did not, that board did not do either of those two things. And it's just so wrong. You've got to back away from this. You just have to join us. Just show us that you really care, because no matter what you believe, Dave, about what these chemicals do to you, or Patty, you said that you don't read anything. You relied on the scientists. It's your due diligence to get out there and read and see not just what Carpenter says, but look at the federal agency that has written volumes about the dangers of PCBs, and that it's one of the top carcinogens out there, one of the most dangerous of the chemicals, and that it is airborne, and that it does go through the ground, and then it does come back up out of the ground and evaporates back into the air. And then if you dig in the dirt where there has been PCB in the area, and they've come down in the rain on the ground, and your children go out and play in the leaves, they can pick up PCBs that are far beyond what their little bodies can take care of. That's all in the national federal papers that you can read online. I've been studying and studying and studying. I don't just listen to Tim Gray. There's just so many things that your due diligence to go out and find out what the real science is. You have to do it. This is wrong. It's unjust. Please. think this through. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you.
Okay, Cornelia,
Yes, good evening. I'm going to read a letter that I wrote to the Board of Selectmen on January 8th. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay. Dear Lee Board of Selectmen, I'm aware that a concerned citizens group posed several questions to the board in regards to the process of the signed settlement agreement. They also asked about the status of the decision made at the town meeting by majority vote by the town representatives to rescind the signature on the settlement agreement. David Consolati, Select Board Chair, said that nothing had been done. The board had not acted on this as of the last Select Board meetings. I'm putting in writing and submitting for the record some of my concerns and objections to the decision-making processes that have or have not occurred. On October 1st, 2020, at the Lee Annual Town Meeting, postponed from due to the pandemic, the representatives voted 37-8 to withdraw the signature representing support for the revised rest of the river settlement agreement. The present selectmen have not acted on this yet. Well, maybe there's a change tonight, but in postponing acting on this, EPA has finalized their responses and decision to the comment period on 12/16/2020. Why didn't the select board act on this vote before this decision was made? That's one of my questions. At the annual town meeting on October 1st, Article 10 was amended and voted in by the town representatives, which stated, and I could take the time to read it, but I think I will hold that. It's in my letter about, I'll actually read it. Quote, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of retaining legal counsel to overturn the agreement that would result in creating a toxic waste dump in Lee and exhaust all avenues to secure the removal of all PCBs from the Houstonic River with the assurance of safe transport to out-of-state facilities for such materials, end of quote. It is my understanding that the money has not been used as of yet for such purposes. If this is so, and why not? Now that the revised settlement agreement has been signed by EPA, I think this needs legal counsel, and I question again why the select board did not take any action yet. Since 2013, Lee town representatives have voted at our annual town meeting to allocate $10,000 a year to approve funds as represented by our select board leaders to hire together with the 5 towns legal counsel for a quote, rest of river cleanup damages defense fund, end of quote, which stated in the warrant article, its purpose was, quote, to quote, obtain financial assistance from General Electric Company to mitigate the effect of its anticipated cleanup of the river, end of quote. And this quote is taken from the Lee Town warrant. The explanations each year for allocating these funds was the same. As I now look back at the wording in the warrant, this protective act changed. We were no longer represented in closed executive sessions, which we were not even aware of occurred. Only after a decision was signed and sealed were we informed. This needs to be carefully reviewed as unacceptable to me and other citizens in this community. As much as approximately $70,000 of taxpayers' money was allocated to protecting our community, which now we find is not the case. How do you explain the use of this defense fund in relation to the decision to sign the settlement agreement for the PCB dump in Lee when this fund was designed as a defense fund? That was another question. It is my understanding that Thomas Wickham, chair of the Board of Selectmen at the time, signed the revised river settlement agreement. He was not a representative on the rest of river municipal committee, and it is my understanding that the rest of river representative from Lee, Pat Carlino, went into executive session. It is my understanding that she agreed with the signing of the rest of river settlement agreement. Why did she have the authority to discuss privileged information with the other select board members and not the town representatives before such a final signature was made? How did Mr. Wickham have the authority to make this signature when he was not a part of the decision-making process? I would like to note that as a Lee town resident and as an elected town representative, I was not aware of the decision for the rest of the River Municipal Committee to go into executive session, or that was even on the table to consider putting a PCB dump site in Lee. We should have been informed of this possibility as it has lasting impacts on the Lee community. Legally, how is this process proper? My question is, how do you justify the above concerns, and going forward, how can you rectify the community's wishes in a way that is not detrimental to the community? While I understand that the revised settlement agreement includes additional cleanup and monetary advantages, Lee will be the depository for 5 surrounding towns as named in the work order for PCBs from the Housatonic River in these towns. This agreement did not keep Lee from being General Electric's dump in our community. This agreement did not protect Lee, and the residents and representatives were not consulted as to what fate they preferred, accepting money or holding to the original settlement agreement that there would not be a PCB dump in the Berkshires. Thank you for your time and consideration. I would appreciate your responses. I will submit this letter to the Select Board's administrative assistant, either through email or in person. I did not want to attend in person due to the pandemic. And one other thing I would like to add, which I did not put in writing in my letter, was that my understanding is that, and I may be wrong on this because I have not researched this, but my understanding is that if Lee were to rescind, or any of the people on the municipal committee were rescinding, that then GE could sue. And if GE sued, then the towns could not sue back. So that's quite a quandary. And I'm not sure about this, but that's one of my things that I think is right. I would like to submit this, and I would like to hear some of the answers if any of the 3 selectmen could respond. I know it's a lot in a letter to just put out to you at once, but I appreciate it. And thank you very much for my time.
Thanks, Graham. Do we have another person? No.
Ann?
I also cannot hear, I would like for the record to also say that as a town person and a town rep, I could not hear the selectmen in this meeting. It was muffled, and I suggest in the future that you all go on Zoom so we can all hear, because we can hear each other on Zoom, but we cannot hear you.
Thank you.
Hey, go ahead, Ann.
Hi, my name's Ann Langless, and I live in District 2 area of Lee. So my main purpose tonight is I won't do any further scolding or express my complete just sadness about the whole situation. But instead, I would like to encourage people to visit our No PCB Facebook page. There's a link where you can join in to become a member, and we encourage people to be active participants. You can ask questions, you can post information if you have other ideas that you talk to scientists, perhaps you have friends that have knowledge that want to share things on the Facebook page. And being tonight that the select board has clearly made the decision that they will not be joining us in the fight against this proposed toxic PCB dump, we as a group, our No PCB dump group, we are going forward, looking to go into court to litigate this whole situation and get rid of the PCB dump. So on Friday, we will have an account ready at the Lee Savings Bank for people to drive up to the window and make a direct donation for the litigation fees. And again, it will be at Lee Savings Bank, and the name of the account will be No PCB Dump. We also have a dedicated email address, which is very simply all lowercase, nopcbdump@yahoo.com. We encourage everyone to please speak up, have your voice heard, and donate, whether it's $1, I don't care if it's 50 cents and that's all you have extra in your pocket. We're going to need every bit of everybody's help to fight our town against the decision that they poorly made against all the scientific evidence and things that could be done instead of placing an actual physical dump in our town. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ann. If you call Cindy, she could probably post it on the website as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, next we have Nicole.
Hi, my name is Nicole Kashorik, and I live on 183 Washington Mountain Road in Lee. You probably don't know me or where that is. It's on the other side of town. I'm both a mother to this beautiful 4- and 9-year-old here, as well as an educator for elementary age children. I think that it's important to point out that we live here at the end of the dead end street, seconds, minutes away from where we run, walk, and I think it's important that you see their faces, the people that you're affecting, because it is personal. And that within 3 miles of this dump are 5 schools, multiple home daycares, playing fields, parks, and playgrounds. We built our house 10 years ago, and to do that, we had to spend thousands of dollars extra, as well as get special permits and town votes because it was in a flood zone, a wetland protection. So this is all very interesting to me to hear that this is happening down the road 10 years later so easily. What I would like to do is just read a 1-page letter that I wrote to the editor that was not put in the paper. I also tried to read this at one of the Pittsfield meetings, and we were shot down and stopped from speaking. So I'd love to just take this minute to read my 1-page letter because I think it's really important. It's probably nothing new, but so that we can see and know that these are the faces of what you're doing. It is clear that the select board acted like they were above us and our decision-making by treating us like second-class citizens. If you are emotionless about this or say it isn't personal, then you're clearly living on the other side of town. I could never imagine leaving our forever family home that we built, and now I can't imagine staying. You have now put my family in the worst possible position. I never wanted to leave my house, and now even if I wanted to, it would be close to impossible to leave with the value of my property that just plummeted. We all know who I won't be asking to sell my house. Your job was to fight for us, and you failed miserably. My job is to fight for the health and safety of my children, and trust me, I will never fail them like you have unfortunately failed us. Everyone who let this happen should be ashamed and disgusted, just as I now feel to be a resident of a town that would sign on to let something like this happen. I hope that you can live with your decision to ruin people's lives, the town, the health, and the well-being of the people that you were supposed to serve. And make no doubt this will be the legacy for you for this town. You had a chance tonight to step up and to do the right thing, to be a hero in a community instead of the enemy that you've now become. I would never want to be you because I don't know how you could live with yourself at sleep at night. I hope that you do think of these images of my 4- and 9-year-olds breathing in the PCBs and the air in their backyard, the dirt that they're playing in, and the water that they're drinking. We were sold out, and for what, I can't really figure out. Money? To protect yourself? Some backdoor secret deal? My only hope now is that there's a miracle of a chance to stop this dump so my family and I can continue to live out our happy, healthy lives here in Lee, a town that we love. Everyone, or you, talk about this dump like it was a win and it's the best thing that's ever happened to us. It is pretty evident that no one here thinks that. From all of these meetings, not one person thinks anything even remotely close to that. There's a reason why this was all done behind closed doors and with no town vote. If this deal was thought of so highly, then you would have included us proudly in a wonderful victory celebrating this news instead of making it a shameful, dirty little town secret. What kind of place are we living in if we allow all of this to take place in this way? Certainly not a place I want to raise my family or values I wish to instill. What kind of mother and educator would I be if I accepted this without a fight to stop it? In school, we're teaching our children and the younger generations that their vote matters, but you have just proven that you don't believe they are important enough to be given the opportunity to vote. While I'm on the topic, the extreme lack of disrespect and professionalism in these meetings is sickening. I have 5-year-old students that speak with more respect than the members of the select board. While I'm at it, I'd like to talk about one more thing, fear. It's an interesting and strong emotion. Clearly, from what you've done by agreeing to this, we can see how people react irrationally when faced with a sense of fear. For the select board, it was the fear that was raised simply because of the unknown of whether or not we could win against big corporate GE. And you had to make the choice between fight, flight, or freeze, and you fled quickly, leaving Lee residents in the dusty PCB dirt. So let me put this into perspective for you. The people that it directly impacts, like myself and my children, all have that fear that you had, but magnified because you are putting our family directly in danger. So I'd like you to think about it. If your fear made you react in such an irrational manner to agree to this deal, can you possibly imagine what our fear will make us do? I wish you luck because we are not choosing flight. We are choosing fight, and that we will. So if nothing else, after sharing this, I will have shown my children right here and my community that I will fight hard by showing them what it's like to be a passionate citizen who has strong morals and values. And I don't believe any of you sitting up there can tell your families or town the same, as it seems like your moral compass is buried somewhere in the Housatonic with a PCB sludge. I wish you all of the best luck because we've got a lot of fight in us here. I will be signing off because my poor children have stayed up now an hour past bedtime. But I wish everyone luck, and I look forward to watching the rest of this recorded. So carry on, River Warriors. We got this.
Thank you. Well,
We have Janice next.
okay.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All I have to say is I'm really disappointed. I really wanted you guys to work with us and do the right thing for this town. I'm going to tell you, it just breaks my heart that this is happening to our town. I love this town. I love the people in this town. And I'm going to fight for this town, for every single citizen in this town. And I'm sorry we're going to have to fight you, but we're going to do it. So everybody in Lee, we need to come together. We need to donate for our attorneys, and we need to fight this, because once it starts moving, there's not going to be any stopping. And say, you might as well say goodbye to Lee. I'm really sad that Patty, if that was me in mitigation, I would have walked out with Tim Gray. I would have walked out with HRI. I don't care how big a corporation is. It doesn't matter. And if GE did the right thing, they could actually be making a lot more money. If they did the right thing, people would be buying their stuff. They would have advertisement. GE cleaned up the river. It would only boost their business. Boost their business. Stupidity. It's all stupidity. And the EPA, I don't trust them. I don't trust any of them. Look at the Hudson River. Dredging this up is, they're wrecking these people's lives. I live on the other side of town where you live, Patty, but I'm fighting for the people on the other side of town, and I'm fighting for the citizens of Lee, because this should never happen. It should have never happened. I hope you guys can sleep at night, and it's really sad. It just breaks my heart that you guys are sticking to this. It really breaks my heart. That's all I have to say. And I wish you guys the best. And I'm going to tell you, Lee, we're going to fight this and we're going to win this. I'm going to fight this till I take my last breath. And that's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Steve.
Unmute him.
Hello. Yeah, Steve Andel here with Janice in 35 Church Street. My question to the select board is, let's say all this resistance was not here tonight. I was at the town meeting. You had the vote to rescind the contract. You had a vote to put $50,000 in legal fees towards that purpose. And what would you have done if there was no resistance tonight? Just not act on it and never get back to anybody? What would have happened? Help me understand the process here. Thank you.
I'm not really sure what your question is.
You don't understand the question?
No, you said that there was no resistance. What would we have done?
Yeah, I'm saying is,
the money would have gone to what it was supposed to go to, which was oversight to make sure that the deal was implemented with overseeing the proper manner to make sure everything was done.
right, but there was a vote at the town meeting to rescind the contract. You were not going to act or respond to that when that was approved?
I can't act to respond to something that's illegal.
So why didn't anyone bring up the illegality at the meeting?
I think we were all taken by surprise. The fact that the motion was made to begin with.
So not only it was an illegal activity, but you were still going to put $50,000 towards the illegal activity.
No, we didn't put anything forward. The money is still sitting in the town account.
I know it's sitting there, but I'm just saying, why did you let this happen just to, placate the people at the town meeting and in the reps that you're going to do something when you're really not?
Let me ask you a question. How long have you been involved in this West River thing? A month, 2 months, 6 months? We've all been dealing for 7 years. And
what does that have to do with it?
We see the ramifications of what not doing what we did was. And that's 3 dumps, not removing the higher content of PCBs, putting the town in a flat greater position of being sick. This was the best possible solution that we were given by our lawyer that we hired for over $500,000 between the 5 towns to make a proper decision. I'm assuming a man who has 27 years of experience and has dealt with these things in different cities and states for the last 27 years is someone we're responsible and will give us the proper information.
Steve, this is Patty. Could I just maybe jump in here too? I know how I felt at the town meeting. When Neil came forward with the proposal, it like, oh, where did this come from? Because nobody had like talked to us beforehand to see if it could be done, how it could be done. So to be truthful, yeah, I think we were just all kind of taken, and it just kind of flew by. And then we had to look at it and say, well, what's it mean? What can we do? And what can't we do? And I think that's where we are now, replying with the questions.
What about the rescind the dump? That was on the warrant.
I didn't hear that.
Oh, no, it's Janice.
Oh, well, you had to rescind the dump was on the town warrant ahead of time.
Yes, but not to talk about it, not to know about it, but not the $50,000. We had no idea that was coming. And that's what we would have done, Steve, sorry.
Yeah.
If this hadn't come up at town meeting and we just went along and the people raised the 50,000 for the rest of the river, it would just be to continue our fight to make sure the agreement is correct to pay our lawyer. And instead it got diverted and we haven't done anything with it. So the money's still there, but.
Right, but is it typical, forgetting just this dump issue? I mean, at any town meeting, is it common for you to have a vote on something that the people of Lee are unhappy with? They want to have a vote to make a change, and then you just ignore it and never say anything and never implement that change?
No, I don't think it's ever happened before. But this has never happened before either.
I'm trying to understand why you even let it happen. Just say
We haven't even talked about it, Steve, if you'll understand. No, I think we started in November and then the meeting got pushed off, and then on your side, and then it was on our side, and then we had last week. And so here we are today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Phil.
All right, Phil.
Phil, you there? We got nothing, Chris.
Yeah, we have Phil unmuted. That was the last person that had their hand raised.
All right, well, he's not there.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just need one more thing before we get into it. I just wanted to ask Cornelia if she would put her letter either in an email, because there was an awful lot to those questions, and I've been writing them down, but I can't possibly get everything. So if she would put it in an email, I hope you're still there, Cornelia, send it to our office, and then we can get back to you on that.
I am here. Yes, I will send it. Should I send it to Cindy?
Yeah.
Who will send it to all of you?
No, she'll get it to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And could you answer the one question I asked about, which was not in my letter, about whether if you did rescind, whether then GE would sue or vice versa?
I have no idea what would happen.
Okay, thanks.
All right, on to the next question. Leave commission update. I don't know if Kathy's on there or not. Kathy with us? Chris, is Kathy there or no?
Yep, I just unmuted Kathy, so you should be able to speak, Kathy. You just need to unmute on your end.
I got Patty, I don't have Kathy.
Okay. All right. So Is it my turn to speak about the
Yes, it's
the
your-
Lee Youth Commission?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, whew. But anyways, the Lee Youth Commission is quite busy. We are looking into new equipment, replacement equipment. In South Lee, we will be having somebody repair the 2 slides that were damaged in that last big snowstorm. The swing set that was damaged has been taken out, and in that area, we are going to replace it with some sort of equipment for older children. At Bradley Street, we are working, let's see this here. We are working on new equipment because people in that area have been asking us to add something to that particular playground because it only has a few things there and not really attracting people to use that particular field.
Sorry, you Bradley Street?
Pardon? Bradley Street.
Didn't we already do Bradley Street?
We did, but we only had 2 little pieces put in, and they're for younger children. They're really for like toddlers. So we want something for an older group. So we're thinking of 1 piece of equipment in that area. The equipment that we did put there, we were lucky. We got it at the right time for the right amount of money. So it's like the least expensive money that we've used in any of our fields, any single field. So we'd like to accommodate people. We're working on our budget. For the community center, our subcommittee is meeting on Thursday. We didn't meet tonight. We're meeting Thursday at 6:30. I would love it if the 70-some people that were here on Zoom tonight would join us on Zoom on Thursday at 6:30. We're talking about funding. And months and months ago, we did have a meeting with the abutters for Stockbridge Road. And at that meeting, both Janice and Andrea were there. And they did ask the question, were we even thinking, entertaining the notion that we would use any of the money from the dump for the community center? And our answer was absolutely not. We would never, ever entertain that notion to use that money. We are all against the dump. So that's, I just wanted to answer or address that situation because it was brought up in the earlier conversation. So Thursday night, we're going to talk about funding. We have been talking about that the last 2 meetings. We had a wonderful speaker at our last meeting who did point out how small our community is and how big pockets would have to be to help us with this center. So at this meeting on Thursday, we're going to talk about, can we do this thing in phases? Are we just going to go back to our initial thing that all started with the need for basketball courts for our children? Because there were little kids that were practicing with their teams at 8:00 at night. And that's horrendous that, there's no regulation courts except at the high school. And then when our children have to go play at competitions and whatnot, it's a whole different dimension for them. So we're not sure where anything's going to bring us. We are certainly cognizant of the pandemic. We're cognizant of what's going on with the dump. But there has to be a bright light somewhere. And, as all of you have said, and Janice said it over and over, we love this town. I've lived here all of my life. I've educated at least 3,000 youngsters in my career as a teacher here. And there would be nothing that I would ever do or would ask my commission to do that would hurt this town. So again, Please join us. We're doing the best we can with what we have in our parks and with the potential community center. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, we have another hand up.
Okay.
This is Gail.
This is on what?
Go ahead, Gail. Go ahead.
Hello. Okay, Tim Gray is trying to speak. He's been raising his hands. He doesn't know how to raise his hand on the computer. I just figured it out just now. I've been trying all night myself. Okay, what I was wondering, is Judith Knight still there?
I have no idea.
She's not?
I don't know yet.
Okay, because I had a question for her, but obviously, you know, she's gone. Okay, but I do want to make this statement. I am very disappointed that the select board is not joining the citizens of Lee against this dump. And I also am extremely unhappy about Sean not taking a position to stand with us. I do not think that he has to stay with you two. You guys signed the agreement, or someone signed the agreement. You were on the board. We voted you in, Sean. I think that you can make more action towards helping us. I would like to have at least the selectmen that we voted in to stand by us. And I can't reiterate that anymore, okay? And I think that when you sit in a room with like-minded people like Patty has, and you listen to the experts that are hired by GE, and you have a government that is rescinding environmental laws, you may be influenced to sign such an agreement or be on with such an agreement. But when the townspeople ask you to rescind it and join them, then you should be with us. And I find your logic to be completely in error, and I really wish you would join us. That's my statement, and that's what I have to say tonight. I know that the science does not support this dump. I know that you should never put a dump in a gravel pit. That's common sense, but the experts will ferret things out at some point. I just wish you would join us. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
You know, I always just had someone come into the courtroom and wants to speak.
I'm sorry, I can't understand what you're saying.
We're gonna sit right up here.
Please let Tim Gray. Can you please let Tim Gray talk?
Hey, Tim Gray,
Hey, Chris.
you're unmuted.
Chris, if you could hold that for a minute.
You gave us 30 seconds to try to get on that computer. You said, oh, we're not there, we're not there. That's what you said. Now we're here, and you're gonna listen to us.
I said if they can't get a hold of you, you move on. Can you? I don't know.
No.
No is right.
That's right. Let her talk. We're not gonna be intimidated by it.
I'm not gonna be intimidated by you.
Yeah. This is our time to.
I'm 13 years old. I'm in this town. And I know this is wrong and could have been avoided. And that
There's no reason to yell. So let's read you.
but you never know how people are usually do things for money and what they think is right. But they.
All right. Ready? Fine.
Well, what do I know? I'm just a kid. I'm just a creature of the town. I'm just the 8th generation of Lakeview that lived here. What do I know? That the town's been sold out, and that my home is now in the danger zone, and that my hope and home are at risk now, that my home is going to be in the heart of the dump. But I'm just a kid too young to know better, and I could leave my everything's hope, home, and like it in someone else's hands. So my works have been hard, and I'm meaning to belong to my town and its help. And if any word of my heartfelt in it, speech had any sort of power to make it heard. Brenna.
Thank you, Brenda. This is who we're fighting for, all right? This is who we're fighting for.
Thank you, Brent.
Tim, I believe you're unmuted now.
Okay, you ready? I just, I agree with everything that was said against the dump tonight. The town is very much unified against this dump. There has been 12 meetings over the last 2 to 3 years. Every single meeting has been packed with people against the dump. There has never been people out supporting this dump except you selectmen. And you know something? You guys could have said no at the mediation. HRI did it. We know you can say no. You could have said no, but you didn't. You went along with everything hook, line, and sinker. And it's really a shame. And, Patty earlier makes references to, the science that you guys have supposedly looked into. Well, at one point you guys told me you had a science advisor or something with the Rest of River Committee. That's right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and what was his name again?
An environmental lawyer is who we had, and a environmental service, ESS, out of Boston.
Okay, and what was his name?
It escaped me. Wes? I can't remember it, Tim. I didn't know I needed that tonight.
Okay, well,
somewhere.
It seems like somebody that's been jumping around the Rest of River Committee has ties to General Electric pretty strong, and I hope you didn't get your science advice from that guy.
No, but you
because-
said that before, and I don't know where you people are getting your information because that's not true.
Okay, well, we'll look into it some more.
Yes, do that.
And we will see you in court about that too. Anyway, I also want to bring out, both of you guys, both the lawyer, your lawyer, and you, Patty, took Mr. David Carpenter into reference. Well, I know more about David Carpenter than you guys ever know. He's a good friend of mine. I've worked with him for many years. And the bottom line is you took one little thing that you found about removing from the river. He's an advocate for removing from the river, but you know what else he's an advocate of? Is that you do not put dumps near people. So maybe you should have gone a little further and read the science accurate before you pronounce that to the public, because you're giving people, just like Mr. Trump did, misinformation that is not true. Okay? You got to make sure what you're saying before you say it. I also want to bring up to you folks that whether you know it or not, you guys got a problem because there's a dump in town already, and it's called the old Schweitzer Martit dump. And this dump happens to be leaking into some of the neighbors' lawns. And when I look up what's in that dump, it seems like there's dioxins and heavy metals, dioxins are extreme poisons. And you know what? You better look into this because it's within town land and it very well might be very, very toxic.
Hey, have you mentioned that?
And that's another reason. Let me talk, Patty. You've had plenty of time to talk tonight. I've been waiting for 2 hours to talk, and you were ignoring me until the end here. So I finally got to talk. Thank you. Another issue is, too, if you had really read everything that's going on here, is that the EPA wants everybody that owns a well around the dump site, the new dump site, to decommission their wells.
Tim, that is wrong. That is the wrong statement. EPA never once asked that to be. The Rest of the River Committee asked them to put that into the agreement. And Cornelia, don't shake your head. Guy was there when we talked about it. We asked them to put that in case any neighbor wanted to. They saw no need to do it. We felt we should offer it. So it did not come from GE. It did not come from EPA. It came from the rest of the River Municipal Board.
Yeah. Well, I know EPA was on it before you folks were on it, so they must have taught it to you. Okay. I know what goes on, everything at this site, and I'm sure that's the conversation that took place. Anyway, why would the EPA want you to decommission all the wells around all the houses? There's only one reason, because they foresee liability in the future for themselves if that dump starts to leak.
Not going to argue with it, Tim.
So I've said what I said, but you're saying a lot of real misinformation, and it really bugs me because you're giving people wrong information, such as the information about Dr. Carpenter. You could have called him up and asked him; he would have told you different, but you didn't. You went to a report and took a little snippet. And then you tell the people like this is the God of Dr. Carpenter. This is this is what he preaches. Well, it's not what he preaches. It's a lie what you're saying to the people. And this has been going on since the municipal committee made their little meeting over there on Woods Pond. And since then, there has been so many misstatements by you folks, misinformation, just like I say, just like through it went through our last presidency, and you are misinforming people. And I will stop there. And I'll say one more thing, is that I know in my heart that this dump is the worst place for Lee, for Lennox, and you want to know something? It's also one of the worst things for the Berkshires, folks. Because this whole area is a wellness community now. And what you people are doing is fighting against this whole thing. So now we're going to have a toxic dump in the millness of a wellness community. These people that are investing, over at Cranwell, over $100 million into having wellness in our community. And this is what you vote on for them? I'm astounded. And are we going to lose the other, our little development downtown? Because I bet you he's thinking twice about building his development anymore in this town. It's just really a shame. You people have economically hurt Lee. You people have done everything you could possibly do to bullshit to us the whole way. And I'll use that word because that's what it's been. It's been a big bunch of bull since last February. And I'm going to leave you with this too. This whole thing that there's no way to beat GE was all fed to you by GE, and you all sucked it in. You all sucked it in big time, and shame on you. Guess what? We're going to federal court. The Housatonic River Initiative. Our appeal has been filed. We'll go to the Environmental Appeals Board before EPA first, and then we're going into federal court. And you want to know why? Because you have a chance to beat the dump. It's as simple as that. You have a chance, Patty. You guys don't care about that chance, obviously. You don't care about the chance, not one of you. You just want to move right ahead, shove the dumps down our throats, try to get rid of us, try to make everybody shut up. Well, you want to know something? Everybody in Berkshire County the majority has shown we're against the dump, and we're not stopping. And we're going to keep going. And we're going to take you to court for accountability, and we're taking GE and EPA and everybody else who wants to go to court in Boston, and we're going to fire at them, and we're going to fight. I'm going to fight for my river because they're not taking enough PCBs out. We're going to fight because the dump is the dumbest idea in the world. Connecticut gets nothing in this, gets no cleanup under this settlement, zero cleanup, and you guys are all supporting it. The legacy in 50 years is the river will still be contaminated. And I think we ought to make a tombstone somewhere with all your names on it. And maybe you should say the river never had a chance. Goodbye.
Next on our agenda, we have a thank you letter. Hey, that'll be it at this point. I would like to express, this is from Tim Spence. I would like to express my gratitude to the Selectmen for waiving licensing fee this year. As you all know, it's been a very difficult year for restaurants. Thank you so much. On another note, I would like you to consider not doing the walk line on Main Street during the summer months this coming summer, if at all possible. 2 summers with no business would be devastating. Main Street, thank you. Sincerely, Tim Spence, Timothy's Restaurant.
Duly noted, Tim.
Yep. Next, we have a seasonal population increase estimation form. As of July 10th, 2021, will be 5,052 people. The estimate was made and voted upon by a meeting called for purpose. After due notice of each of the members of the time, place, purpose of said meeting, after investigation, ascertained by us all of the facts and cooperative discussion and deliberation, the estimate is true to the best of our knowledge and belief. So,
Is this correct that Oaken Spruce has summer seasonal population of over 5,000 people? That's what it says here.
That's the estimate. Yeah. Perhaps.
Well, you're looking at coming in and out.
Yeah, they're not, right, they're not permanent seasonal, but. Right.
Patty, I don't know if you're there or not.
You need a motion?
I'll need a motion to accept the estimated population for 2021, January 28th.
I'll make a motion. Yeah, so moved. I'll second that.
All in favor? Roll call, Patty.
Yeah, Pat Carlino, aye.
John Runway, aye.
David Consolati, aye. And next, we have a waiver of inspection fee for Pastor Doug Manberg Baptist Church. We've done this in the past for other religious entities and nonprofits. I have absolutely no issue with waiving the fee. As you know, inspections have to happen early or yearly, I should say. It's safety. If they have a kitchen, it's kitchen inspections required or whatever. So
I'd move the waiver of the inspection fee for Berkshire Hills Baptist Church. What?
All those in favor, Pat, I need your roll call.
Pat Carlino, aye.
John Runway, aye.
David Consolati, aye. So that is the all on the agenda. We have no pending business. We have no town administrative business. Now we're up to public comments. Nobody here. We'll go from there.
We have 2 people with their hand up for public comments.
Yes.
So, Ann?
Hi, yes, Monica Ryan would like to know if you could turn on her for, put her unmute because she cannot get the hand to raise so she can speak. Is that possible, Chris?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you very much. I do not have a raised hand button on my reactions button for some reason, and but I digress. So, but that goes to the quality of this meeting. You can hear me clearly, and I think you can hear all of the speakers who had their own computers speaking very clearly. And earlier, we missed a lot. We missed a lot of what Jeremiah was saying, and also what Dave and Sean, everybody was saying in the Lee Town Hall. And I wanted you to be aware of that, so that that suggestion, but about getting your own computers, and you can sit in the same room and do it that way. I don't care, but please respect us and enough to allow us to be able to speak. I found it very frustrating that I couldn't even get to speak, and then to not even be able to hear you, and whatever you were saying was completely garbled. And so just I say that that's needs to please improve. Shame on the select board for not taking this olive branch that was given to you to do the right thing. All right, so it's about doing the right thing. You know, as everyone has said on here, that there are hundreds of people in the town of Lee that are against this, thousands, I'd say, and that are completely against this and have felt that you let them down. You are representing them, and you went ahead with a decision that was that should not have been taken on your own. Now, we did have a vote in our town hall meeting on October 1st, where we asked you to spend the $50,000 to spend it towards rescinding the decision with the EPA, the agreement. And it makes me wonder now, and this question was raised by Steve earlier, and Patty said she thinks this was the first time this has happened, but
No.
I don't get it. Do you just pick and choose which warrant articles you are going to follow? Or are you, and then just do it at your own whim and say the heck with the town representatives and the people that they represent, and the fact that we got together and voted on this, and we had a lot of discussion that night, and we took a break so that we could have the legal team review the wording before it was submitted, which is what we normally do with any of these amendments that are done. So whether you got an advance notice or not, I don't care. You should have been ready, and you had a lawyer there. The town council was there, and it should have been reviewed like we've done every other time when we've made amendments to meetings at town, to any warrant articles, and then we go forward with it. How dare you decide to not follow the will of the people? I was struck by the first few words of President Biden's inauguration speech. Said we need to follow the will of the people, and I was yelling at the TV like, I wish at least select board would listen to this, because they need to do this and listen to the will of the people. Look at those children on that earlier. I mean, the shame. How you sleep at night, I don't know, but. How is it that I want to know, do you just pick and choose, and are there any other articles, warrant articles, that you're just going to be like willy-nilly following or not following?
No, I assume you don't remember correctly. Mr. Clark wrote that change on the whim, sitting in his chair, when it was the $50,000 was initially supposed to go to oversee the contract. And so we didn't get it ahead of time. We got it while he was sitting in his chair and rewrote it.
I know that. I just said that. I'm saying that we have these amendments all the time. It's not the first time we've had an amendment. And we have our lawyer review it. As in every other town, anytime there's an amendment, the lawyer has to review it. And we even gave you time to do it. We took a break so that he could make sure the wording was right. Came back with it and said, here's what we're submitting. So come on. And I think it was well worded. I think everyone was clear on what they were voting on. There was no questions on, could you clarify it? Everyone was clear on what they were voting on, and that's what they voted for. And you decided to go against it. So I say to you, please don't do this in the future with any other warrant articles that we have at our town hall meeting, and respect the will of the people. Now,
the money is still sitting there.
What?
How do we go against it?
You have, you know what, you know what you're facing here, a lawsuit, and you know that we have a very viable case here. And I don't see why you would put the town through this. Why wouldn't you just say, okay, yeah, we made a mistake. Let's move forward. Can't you see about this is what we're giving you, the chance to move forward. And shame on you for not taking this. And shame on the Berkshire Eagle. Listen, Berkshire Eagle, I'm sure you're watching this meeting. Report the facts of the meeting. We are angry. We were very upset. I bought a house in this town, in this godforsaken town 10 years ago, and I plan to live here the rest of my life. And now I'm really thinking, well, why would I live in a town that has a dump? I should jump ship now, like rats off a sinking ship. I should be selling my house, but I don't want to. I like Lee, and I'm willing to fight, just as I was willing to fight Veolia, and we beat them too. They were the world's largest water company. We beat them. So why won't you join us in fighting GE? Please, for the sake of our children and our children's children. I don't have any kids here, but all your children, for God's sake. That's it. And get this Zoom meeting business together. And, Dave, I can hear you better now because you don't have your mask on, but you should have your mask on, for God's sake. I was going to come down there myself, but I was exposed to COVID, and I didn't want to risk exposing you because I have to shelter for 9 more days. How dare you not wear a mask? And the attitude of your select board members, specifically you, Dave, sucks. Goodbye.
Thank you for your opinion. Next, Chris.
We have one last person, Cornelia.
Cornelia's already on.
Hello? Yes. I was going to say actually a similar thing that Monica said.
Lisa?
I often, can you hear me?
No,
What? No. Can you hear me?
I didn't really hear what you said, Cornelia.
Okay. I actually was just asking, sometimes I work during the select board meetings, but sometimes I want to come to them and I can't come in person. And I appreciate your efforts. I know Zoom's complicated, but it would be very helpful if each select board, you can't be all three in the same room with a laptop on. You'd have to mute each other out at times, but somehow to have it work, that I really would sincerely like to hear all of you. And it was, and you know, Patty, because you've been on Zoom this whole meeting, it was really, really difficult to hear anything. The select board, I could hear everybody who was speaking. And I actually want to say that I found it kind of rude that all the people in Zoom were emailing each other. It's not appropriate. I'd like to hear what's being said, not reading all the little comments. I wanted to also thank you, Patty, for responding to each of the questions that the Concerned Citizens Group had posed. I'm not part of that group, but I wanted to thank you for at least making an effort to answer those questions and taking that time. I did not hear responses from the other two select board members. And I know that the rest of the River Municipal Committee did work very hard on this. I did state in my letter the reasons why I feel that there were problems with the processes, though. And I hope that you do take the time at some point to write to me or write to the town somehow some of my questions that I did make. One of them I will ask here again, and take it out of the letter, just one specific question. And that is, in terms of EPA having already finalized their decision, my question is, why didn't the select board act on this vote before this decision was made?
There's a number of reasons for that. First of all,
It's very hard to hear you. Go ahead.
There's a number of reasons for that. First of all, the selectmen give us a series of questions by Ms. Knight that we had to respond to. As normal, we have to get legal acknowledgement, acceptance before we make those answers clear. We also had a series of questions for her, at which she took several weeks to get back to us on the answers to those questions. So that is why it took so long to get those answers.
What I'm saying has nothing to do with the Concerned Citizens Group. It's from me. EPA was going to make a decision by December 16th, and the vote by town representatives for the selectmen to rescind and follow that decision was in October. And tonight was the first time that you made any response.
I believe we acted in the same way we had since it started. We believe we made a proper decision. We believe we were under the law when we made that decision. We haven't changed our position.
Thank you.
Pat, anything to add?
And we have Neil Clark.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello?
You're on and off.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify what I believe I heard Dave say. about the process
Neil,
regarding Article 10.
Neil, something's off with
understanding
your,
was
hearing the same thing I'm hearing?
Yeah.
All
Neil,
that.
we keep hearing. Neil, you're breaking up. Neil. you're breaking
We
up.
had to, why don't we try to unmute you one more time and see if it's better. It looks like you have low bandwidth.
Oh.
Try it one more time, Neil.
Hello?
Neil.
Okay, I always wanted to be in a band. Let's see, just the process Dave mentioned, you can hear me now about Article 10.
Yeah.
Is that coming, am I coming through?
Yeah.
Okay, if you recall, there was a letter, and the material sent out beforehand, before the meeting. And then the letter to the reps, it stated that it was at least my understanding was the intention to call for the end of the meeting after Article 10 dealt with budgetary matters. So I saw, the $50,000 in there for the council for Rest of the River, and understanding that there was so much concern about the dump, I didn't want to try to ensure that topic were just prior to adjourning the meeting. So that was the tactic taken in order to do that. I did.
Neil, you're try shutting your video off because your audio is not coming through again.
I believe that was discussed. I had the document printed out before, so I didn't just make it up on the spur of the
Neil, are you there? I think we lost Neil. There he is.
Is that on? So if you're following me, when we finally got to Article 10, which was at least the last sure thing that we're going to do at the meeting, the moderator in her introductory remarks indicated that anybody could hold a certain part of any one of those subsections, and that they were subject to amendment. And so, lo and behold, she just kind of certified what I signed. And when I read the proposal, well, first of all, we had to take the vote on the other ones, and all other ones passed, not really amendment. So I read, and that was the time when they asked for a recess, I believe. During the recess, people got together. There were suggestions made about the source of the funding, I believe, and I submitted it to the moderator. They looked it over. I accepted the changes to the language, but the redirection of the $50,000 was there for council to look into ways to get the PCBs out without a dump, basically. So as far as I was understood, it was all according to Hoyle. We followed Robert's rules. Town council was there. Things were not ruled out of order. They weren't ruled beyond the scope of order. So it all went through, and the rest is history. The intent, of course, was if we're going to ask you to do something like fight against, withdraw from the agreement, and then seek ways to try to rectify it, it would make sense to have some funds available to do that. And the votes obviously sustained that opinion. So it wasn't willy-nilly, Dave. That's, I guess, the bottom line to what I thought I heard.
Neil, I'd just like to say there wasn't any indication that anything was and all. It just, for myself, I was taken by surprise because we hadn't discussed it or you hadn't asked any questions. And it was just like, wow, where did that come from? So that's why I didn't put up any objection, but didn't know what we could.
That clarifies, again, the intention if that letter, you recall that letter, and the meeting was gonna be adjourned after the 10th article?
Neil, I'm sorry. I haven't understood anything you've been saying hardly at all because it's all messed up. You want to try to repeat that?
Sure. Is it your recollection that the town meeting was going to be adjourned after Article 10? We weren't going to take up any other business?
I don't really remember, but that was part of the budget. That wasn't a special article. That was part of the.
Right. No. And that's it. That there was a letter that came out with the information to the reps prior to the meeting, indicating that it would be suspended after Article 10 because of the importance of getting a budget, squared away
Oh,
for
right.
this coming year. So.
Right. Yep. Oh, right. You're right.
So that sure of having additional.
Thank you, Neil. All right, Chris, is that all?
We have one more hand up from Amanda.
Hi, everybody. I just had just a clarifying question. I won't keep you long. I know you guys have been kind of handling all this for a very long time, but I guess I just wanted to clarify, is there anything like legally binding the town of Lee to the rest of the river kind of contract? Or, if the selectmen voted to say that they rescinded their, opinion, would that be possible? Is there anything legally binding you, or are you three just deciding that this is the best option for the town and that's where your vote is going?
Speaking for myself, we're legally bound. Go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Pat. No, go ahead. Ladies first.
I didn't hear. Say that again.
Go ahead, Patty.
I just said, speaking for myself, I believe we are legally bound by the terms of the settlement agreement and our intermunicipal agreement.
I guess I just wanted to clarify that. Is that all of your understanding, or is that just Patty's understanding of the contract, or do all three of you feel that you are legally bound to this contract? And if you do feel you're legally bound, I guess I'm just wondering where you get that understanding from.
Well, that's my understanding as well, Amanda, that yes, the town is because we signed on to the agreement, we are legally bound to that agreement.
Yeah, Dave, we entered into agreement with 5 towns and several other entities with the understanding that we would negotiate together to come to a set rule of what was going to happen. When it came down to that, and we all signed on to that agreement except HRI, then my understanding is we had a legitimate contract, and to back out of it now would set things in motion that we probably don't want to have to deal with, as well as from GE and EPA.
So you feel if you rescinded your agreement to, then you would have some sort of negative consequence? Like, would we have to pay a fine? I guess I'm just having a hard time understanding kind of what the consequence would be and why you feel that there would be a consequence. Because I know, a handshake and an agreement, they're two different kind of things, but I guess I'm just kind of wondering where the language would be, just for further research, maybe even on my own, where the language would say that we would have any kind of negative consequence of rescinding kind of the town's signature.
Well, the possibility of not following through with this is several layers deep. One, if GE says, all right, you rescinded your agreement, we're no longer contractually obligated to you, we can put in 3 dumps. We don't have to remove the higher parts from main sediment from one spot and ship it out of here. We can just bury it as they originally gave us opportunity to do. So it goes down a whole list of things that are very negative.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no one else, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we're up to public comments.
Public comment.
Well, we're still in public comment, and I would like to offer my condolences to the Mason family. Bob was the longest serving selectman, I believe, in Massachusetts, or not selectman, I'm sorry, town administrator in Massachusetts. He spent a lot of time here, he did a lot of things, and I wish to offer my condolences to his wife and daughter. He was a very good man. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that Chief Rusid retired, and he's going through a hard time, and he has our thoughts and prayers with him. But he decided it was time to step down, and they did a lovely little parade of sheriffs and chiefs and individuals and firemen in front of his home, which he was incredibly moved by, and I hope he just realized how much we appreciate everything he did. That's all I've got.
Yeah, I just want to say that I was fortunate enough to be able to make that parade, and it was quite the show.
Nothing else? I'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Take a roll vote.
Pat Carlino, aye.
Sean Renier, aye.
In Consulate, aye. Our next scheduled meeting is February 2nd. Have a good night. We're out.